Welcome to the Emetophobia-Free podcast. Today we are joined by the remarkable Sophie, who has a fantastic story to tell. Now, Sophie contacted us first way back in January 2024 when she wrote us a letter. So you typed a letter and sent it to HQ to cut through the noise of the emails. And from that point, we knew she was remarkable. And we've been in contact since, and you've been in contact with Rob. And there's such a lot to unpack with your story, centering a lot of it around how complex or seemingly complex your case is and your history with lots of other practitioners and lots of other professionals on your journey to try and overcome emetophobia. So massive and huge welcome to Sophie. Lovely to have you with us. Do you want to start, Sophie, just telling us where it all began for you and why I would suggest your case is considered to be pretty complex?
Yeah, sure. Well, when I was younger, so from probably age 3 or 4, as with most people who can remember having emetophobia, or like just this thing about being sick from literally as long as I can remember, in terms of being at school and having not wanting to go to school, and because I was scared to be sick without my mum being there, and but then she became a teacher at the school, so then I felt safe because she was there all the time.
Yeah.
So that probably didn't help to reinforce that belief. But then we had a big change in my life when I was about 10 and in year 5, going on to the last year of high school. And we moved from sort of a city location to a countryside location, which was a massive change. And I don't think I dealt with that very well. So then I ended up getting lots of other conditions after that. I just started to not cope with life. And my way of coping started off with OCD. And then over time, then I got an eating disorder, and then I got diagnosed autistic, and then many years later, I think last year or the year before, I got diagnosed ADHD, and I've had anxiety and depression, and I was at CAMHS for 7 years, as like the whole time you can be there, and everyone was baffled by me, and they couldn't really help me, so it wasn't a great time.
No, no, it doesn't sound like a great time. I think you said in one of your letters or emails that they held case study meetings about you because they just couldn't fathom out what was going on for you. Is that right?
Yeah, they had all the professionals there. They got like the head of like the neurodiversity department, the psychiatrist, the psychologists, like they had a whole meeting, and I was told that they had a meeting, a case study of me to see, what was going on and if they could do anything about it. I've also always been told, I've just always been referred to as complex, complicated, not much we can do.
Right. Okay. So with that background, when did you come across Thrive in amongst all of that?
Well, I obviously knew that always my issue, like whether it was the eating disorder from not wanting to eat because worried to be sick, or the
Yep.
IBS as well I have, and the OCD. Everything I did for OCD was because I was worried about being sick. So everything was related to sickness. And I kept trying to tell people that at the CAMHS, and it took a good probably 4-ish years before then they raised the word emetophobia, and they did give me a specialist, which unfortunately ended up being a exposure specialist, which wasn't very helpful. And yeah, so I Googled myself, I think even before that I'd Googled the name, and I think I took the name to them because I said, what is this? I just Googled fear of being sick because it's not talked about. So I just like, no one seems to know what this is. And I found out the name, and then obviously that was the first thing that came up there. And I think that must have been probably 2015, maybe something like that. And I found it, and I just saw it, and I was like, this is the only guy that is going to be able to help me. So yeah, that's where it started.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So what I think would be good is if we just go, you mentioned OCD there and, the eating disorder. Take us back to the height of your emetophobia, when you were struggling the most with it, and describe what life was like at that point for you so that we can understand how severe it was.
Yeah, well, it was especially the OCD, and I think this partly comes from being autistic and being very black and white. It can be quite extreme. And I was mostly housebound, so I sort of didn't want to go out. And if I did go out, I would cover like all my skin, and I'd like wear a hat, and I had to cover my nose and my mouth like with either a hanky or like sometimes I used my hood to cover myself. And then I also breathed quite shallowly and sort of felt quite faint some of the time. And a lot of people kept staring at me, which didn't help with social anxiety. Obviously, they kept asking if I had a nosebleed as well.
Yeah.
And when with the OCD as well, it took me 3 hours to get ready in the morning, just sort of to get out of bed, to sort of get dressed and have breakfast and stuff. And I had a thing where I felt like I had so many rituals to do and counting and different things to get out of a room. I couldn't really get out of a room without someone sort of like holding someone's hand to get across the boundary of the room. So if I was
Yeah.
ever left on my own for a day or whatever, then if the others went out, then I was just stuck in one room, which wasn't
Yes.
very good either. And I couldn't bath myself. My sister became like my young care. Became a young carer for me, and she had to go to young carers because she had to dress me and get my clothes out and bath me because I couldn't do it myself. I also, from stress and stuff, I got loads of terrible eczema everywhere, and I got IBS, and then I left school in year 8, so that wasn't very good. And
No.
then I had to be home educated by like a hospital team that come. So they're like the people from the council who go to people's houses who are like got chronic illnesses and stuff, and they came to help me.
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty debilitating. I was just like stressed and anxious all the time, and I only had one bit of a sofa that I could sit on, and I would always spray that with Dettol, and I couldn't bear it if we had any guests round, and I would like all the family couldn't. I was obsessed with anything to do with luck, so like the number 13 or cracks in pavements, ladders, etc. And like the thing where they say it's unlucky to sing Christmas songs before Christmas, like none of my family were allowed to do that. No one was allowed to say the word sick or vomit or anything like that. And if they said any words that I was against, my mum and dad and my sister would have to say, I take it back straight away after. And so yeah, I was kind of like in charge of the whole house. Everyone sort of had to wash their hands loads and do what I said, because otherwise I would just freak out, because for me, like being sick was worse than dying, really. So
Yes. Yeah.
I I just reacted out of fear, and I was only sort of 12-ish, so I was just young. I didn't really understand it myself, what was happening.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
and then I also initially with the eating, it was kind of I felt so out of control with everything else that it was like as it always is with eating disorders, it's like a control thing. So it was the one thing I could control is how much I was eating. So that was a thing. And then it after that, then it was just whatever would make me sick. I was just thought all food was going to make me sick, so I was just scared of it. I had to cook for myself because I didn't trust my mum and dad to cook it or wash their hands properly. Stopped
Mm-hmm.
eating meat, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So quite a lot going on for you, and extremely debilitating.
Mm.
So, for people listening to this, you know, as you're going to go on to explain now, you no longer have emetophobia and your life is vastly different to that now. Um, I hope that provides a little bit of reassurance that no matter your starting point or what you're dealing with, if you have a long list of diagnoses, if you are, really entrenched in those OCD behaviors, you can still get yourself over emetophobia and living the life that you want to be living. Now, your journey through Thrive, you found it in 2015, wasn't a straightforward one. Would that be fair to say?
Well, it's been 8 years and I'm still here. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's start with Journey Through Thrive then, because you saw all the other professionals. Just very quickly, what did you try before you tried Thrive to overcome your emetophobia?
Well, I think I saw everyone in the entirety of CAMHS. I mean, when I left, I created like a thank you, not that they really helped me, but just a nice thank you sort of picture. And I did it as a caterpillar, and then each like body piece of the caterpillar, like circle, was someone I'd seen. And I was probably about 18 people on there. So,
Wow.
because at first I was seeing people, I saw a CBT therapist for OCD, and his approach, I think he had to come to the house because I was housebound at the time, and his approach was he came, and I just remember he took off his shoe and he licked his shoe, and he also went to our toilet, flushed the chain, and then ate an orange. And he said, if I come back to your house next week and I haven't been sick having done these things, then you'll know it's not true. So you need to just like kind of do things and then realize that you're fine and then get over it. So
Okay.
that I was just like, no, and
Nope.
sort of argued back to him. And then he said, oh, well, it's not working and we think you might be
Yeah.
autistic. So then they had
Yeah.
to go through that whole process. So then I saw all the people to do with that, and I had to go to like group meetings for that. Um, And then with the weight stuff, I had to go to a dietitian to try and help me gain weight because, and with the IBS, I was at the doctor, so it was very like misjointed, and like no one realized that everything driving it was just emetophobia. They were just,
Yeah.
the doctors would just be testing me for like Crohn's disease and various other
Mm.
things that I really wouldn't, unlikely that I had, when it was all stress related and
Yeah.
blood tests and whatnot. Not to mention the
Yeah.
fact that going to a doctor's was really like not really a good
Not
option
great.
for me. So I
No.
didn't like that very much. But yeah, then I saw, I think, and then I was saw this like really, really clinical, high up, like top area psychologist, I think it was, yeah. And she was trying to explain to me about serotonin. Everyone kept trying and trying and trying to make me take medicine, which like what are they called? Um, like the ones that you take for anxiety and stuff, like antidepressants and stuff like that. And they said that
Yes.
would reduce my anxiety to enable me to be more like willing to try stuff. But
Yeah.
I saw that as like taking away control from me if I was taking medication that would affect my brain. And to be honest, I'm glad I didn't, because there's some bad research about that for young children to be taking that.
Okay.
Um, and then and then she said, "Oh, it's about the past," and she was like, she did sort of realize it was about the fear of being sick and stuff. So then she tried to do EMDR on me. So she would like wave her finger in front of my face and make me like think back to things that had happened when I was sick, even though that wasn't really like times I'd been sick. It wasn't, I processed it badly, but it wasn't like super traumatic.
Yeah.
Um, and then, and she did this like spider web thing as well, where she said like, if you do the easier things, tackle it first on the outside, then work your way towards the middle. You eventually get there because you'll get confidence. But everything about it basically was like, tackle your safety behaviors, like
Yeah.
do something that's a bit easier first and work your way in.
Mm.
And that felt threatening to me. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that. You're just trying to make
Yeah.
me like be unsafe and be sick, which I don't want.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they actually had an emetophobia specialist, which I thought, oh, great, finally, this is going to be great. But then she was an exposure person. And I think she
Okay.
was only there. I know this is when I was nearly 18, 19, so I was on my way out of CAMHS at that point. So I could only see her a short time, but it wasn't going to go well anyway, because she was starting to talk about watching videos of people being sick and all sorts of stuff, which I thought, no, thank you. And then all the time I was under like the top psychiatrist as well, who would
Yeah.
just kind of manage what I was doing with the other people that were there, and also keep trying to convince me to have medicine, basically, which I
Okay.
kept saying no to. They were threatening me to go to a mental hospital quite a lot and said, you must do this. And I had a different psychiatrist used to come to the house, which is very rare for someone to come, like someone, because he he used to live in Wolverhampton, and he'd stop on his way home to come to my house, because I think because I'm quite academic, they saw like potential in me, so they wanted to
Mm.
invest their time and effort into trying to help me, because they knew
Yeah.
I wasn't like a hopeless case in a way, that they knew that
Yes.
they just didn't know how to like unlock that, I guess. Um, which is frustrating, I suppose, for
Mm.
professionals when they can see someone they don't know how to do it, even though we know
Yeah.
that there is a way that exists, which is unfortunate that not as many
Yes.
other people know that. But then yeah, and then eventually I got to 19, and because they'd already let me stay on an extra year at CAMHS, and I should have.
Right.
And then they said, well, there's nothing, here's a long list of diagnoses you've got. There's no help for you in adult services. Your long-term like prognosis of life is very bad. Goodbye.
Oh God.
And that was
Oh,
that.
that was that. That must be so hard to hear because it's, there's no blame here. All of those professionals were doing the best that they could with the tools that they had. They just didn't have the right tools, did they?
Mm.
If they had the right tools, you would have got over it earlier.
Hmm.
So there's certainly no blame, but that must be so frustrating to a young person with a whole life ahead of them being told there's no support available for you.
Hmm.
Off you go. That
Yeah.
that that must have been a scary thing. Now, when you found Thrive and you started working your way through it, what was different about it? Why did you? Because you
Um,
said it earlier, Rob. This is the guy that's going to help me. How did you know that?
I think, well, firstly, because it was all about emetophobia, and like there was just so much evidence of how many people it had treated, and it was just like on the website and stuff. Although, of course, I being told I was so complex and everything, and like a lot of people, you see the testimonials and thing, you think, well, that won't be me. Like, but I mean, on the one hand, I did think that. On the other hand, also it says obviously the 6 to 8 week thing that it would that you could
Yeah,
get. But I didn't take that. I said, I'm really complicated. This isn't going to be me. This is going to
good,
take a long time. 8 years
good.
later,
Yep. Yeah.
but not 8 weeks, 8 years. But
Yeah.
not that it took eight. You know, I got better really quickly anyway. But like
Yeah.
the journey kind of carries on. But
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna keep going at this because also that was it, and I was quite scared in a way because I had tried literally everything else, and you know I've been let
Mm,
down so many times that I
mm,
was there is nothing else after this. So I was like, if
mm,
this doesn't help, then I'm
mm.
kind of doomed. So
Yeah.
this is not.
Yeah.
So it was a bit scary to like, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put all my effort into it. But I think there was that the first thing was on because I did it in 2017 the first time that I got the book
Yeah.
and I was gonna do it with my dad, so he was gonna we're gonna do like a few pages every couple of days and then like read it together.
Yeah.
And the first thing you have to do is like sign a contract. So like it's you sort of say you're gonna commit to it to yourself, and it was just it just described me like is that my dad was like this is you and it wasn't talking about emetophobia, it wasn't talking about being sick, it wasn't talking even about anxiety or anything, and I didn't feel, especially for me and with my autism and a bit of like defiance disorder, like people telling me what to do, it wasn't like anyone was saying, oh, we're going to tackle your safety behaviors or your phobia itself, or it didn't feel threatening at all to me. It was like, oh, it's just about like your self-esteem and like social anxiety and the way you see the world, and I'm quite like a curious person, so it was like explaining how my brain was working, like beliefs and lenses, and that what you're thinking isn't actually necessarily reality, which to me was like, wow, this is interesting. Like all of the locus of control, it was almost just like it was just teaching about how your brain was working. It wasn't trying to make me do anything to do with my safety behaviors, and that was like a core thing for me because that's what stopped me before, I think.
Yeah.
So, and it was
Yeah.
different. That's what was so different compared to other
Yes.
stuff.
Yes, and
So,
I love the word non-threatening because that's exactly how I found it as well. When I read it, I was like, "Oh, this person understands me. They know who I am, and this is talking about me, same as you." And then because it was okay, well, work on everything else before you do that. You know,
hmm
work on your self-esteem in this area, work on your beliefs in that area.
hmm
Look at your, you know, belief around luck, for example, or
hmm
fate. And I thought at the time, I can do that. I can
mm,
do that. That's not a problem. I can look at that. I can talk about it. I can understand it. I can look into the evidence. I can do all of that. I can't
hmm
tackle my safety seeking behaviors. And I
mm,
knew I couldn't. So that's similar to yourself. But understanding that all of that provides the foundation for you to feel confident enough to then decide to start tackling your safety seeking behaviors.
mm,
That's wonderful, isn't it? Because you only
mm,
do it at your pace.
hmm
So that's fabulous. So lovely. Now, you started going through it with your dad. How did it go first time
Well,
you started doing it?
it went, yeah, it was going really well because I took it really slowly, and like I've very studious person, and like I
Yes.
did all my GCSEs at home, like they let me do it at home, and then I did manage to go to because our local college is really small, so I did go to sixth form college for. I stayed
Nice.
for 3 years because they let me stay on for an extra year, so I could do like it over a shorter time, and they were really like nice to me. And I got like nearly all A stars and stuff, so I'm very like committed to stuff, and I will
Mm.
revise and I can take stuff on. So I decided like I'm going to treat it the same way. You know, it's almost like I've got evidence. If I study something, I can get good results. So I was
Yes.
like, I'm going to study this. I like made like flashcards and put it all over my wardrobe. And I, at the time, I think there was like videos. It wasn't the same as it is now, but there was some maybe on YouTube or something. And I would record that on my phone. And then when I went for walks, I would like listen to that while I was out. Um, and what I really liked as well was me and my sister, we've always liked, you know, like in magazines when they have the quizzes and then you have to follow all the questions, and then at the bottom it says, and this is you, you're a dog or you're a
Yes.
cat or
Yeah.
you like to
Yeah.
read crime fiction or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the different things was like little quizzes that then told you something about yourself or what your score
Mm.
was or all these things. And I don't know, that just was really enjoyable to me, and
Yeah.
it was revealing, and then it was something you could then work on. And
Mm.
there was always, again, being the kind of a schoolish person, that I quite liked it. You'd sort of learn something and there was like homework, and then so you felt like you could had something, an
Yes.
objective goal to do, which was helpful because I'm quite goal oriented. So
Yeah.
we could do each little bit. And I absolutely said, I'm not going to move on or read anymore until I've nailed this bit before. So we would, so some bits took longer than others because I'm like, I'm not over this bit yet, but some bits was quicker. So yeah, we just went all the way through. I don't know how long that took, quite a long time. And by that time I'd moved out into my, so I was like quite, because that was my aim when I started to do it. I was like, I want to be good so I can live in my own house and then go to university. And I got a dog as well. So
Yes. That's
I was
amazing.
doing quite, and I was still working on it at that point, and but yeah, I was doing quite well, like living
Mm.
independently and managing to go to university. Like obviously not staying in university accommodation, that was too far. So I've got had my own separate house, which is still this house.
Yes.
And I got my dog so that I wasn't on my own. My first dog
Yeah.
actually that was, and yeah, I was doing quite well.
Very well. Considering, the start point was you couldn't leave a room without
Hmm.
somebody else to now living on your own, that's
Mm,
phenomenal achievements. And then, if I'm right, COVID hit.
mm.
Is that the next chapter of the story?
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Tell us about
Uh,
COVID. What happened?
so I think there's a few different things. One thing, obviously, again with the autism, like when there's a big change, things it's hard to cope with. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, lifestyle changed and not being allowed to go to my normal places and the routine getting disrupted and just the
Yeah.
uncertainty of it and of everything. But
Yeah.
I think the main other things was I'd spent the last however many, maybe 2 years, like doing the thriving and stuff, and overcoming my beliefs, which was still sort of there, but like still been working on them. And then suddenly, like everywhere I looked, there was evidence that was reinforcing all my old beliefs. So even back to the time when I used to cover my face with the handkerchief or with my hood,
Yeah.
then they were like, right, now you must cover your face with the mask. And then I would always worry a bit about supermarket trolleys, and I used to like use hand gel on there and stuff. And then
Yeah.
suddenly they were providing stuff to clean the supermarket trolleys with. And everyone was, and I was trying to overcome my thing about worrying about other people passing stuff. And then it was like, humans are so dangerous. They're going to pass stuff to you. They're going to cough on you. And
Yeah.
this was obviously like the message. And it was all about washing hands and soap and hand
Yeah.
gel. And for 2 years. So then then I was like, oh, well, I was right all along, you know?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
felt, somewhat vindicated, but then also like, oh no, now I've gone like really far backwards again.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't a great time. I mean, it did coincide as well with I think so I had to do my final year of university like online, and I'd realised that I didn't want to do that like I wasn't going to pursue like a job in that area, and so my future was all very uncertain as well. So it was all just like a mixture of stuff really, and
Okay.
just had quite a big relapse and just thought, well, I must be too complicated for Thrive to work. Like, there's obviously something wrong with me. Like, and
Yeah.
but so I just thought, I don't know what to do. And I went down quite a dark hole that wasn't a very
Mhm.
nice time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So this is a really important point because what you're saying there is I was a particularly complex case. I had a starting point that was far back, if you will. I wasn't able to leave a room at one stage. Got myself living on my own. Had a relapse. Had
Mm,
in Thrive terms, a really big blip,
mm,
right? That
mm,
went on for quite a while. Very big blip, and yet you still persevered. So,
mm.
where was the turning point? When did you start turning back to Thrive, if you will?
Well, obviously they had to reach rock bottom. So, if I'm honest, I did get quite suicidal, and there was a bit of an episode with
Mm,
that, which is obviously like the worst it can get.
mm,
And then, slowly, I just sort of came out of that a little bit, and then I was just
yeah,
in this sort of depressive like state, which just. And my dad said, "Look, there's only one guy that's going to help us out of this," because my dad kind of sees Rob as like a god. So he's like, there's only one guy that's going to save us. The only thing that's ever worked and got you better was the Thrive. And it's like you need to talk to the big cheese yourself. And I
yeah,
and
okay.
we came up with this plan because we were like, well, you know. He probably what he said before in his book and stuff, how many emails he gets all the time. So it was like an email's not going to cut this. So this is when I came out with the idea that I found the address on the website. I was like, right, I'm going to write a letter, and I wrote and I told him about me, and I just said to him, am I too complicated for this to work?
Yeah,
Like, does this just not work on people like me because I'm too complicated?
yeah,
And I don't know how long after, maybe a month or so later, he replied and had a meeting with me and explained things to me. And that's when I just went back into 5 again, really.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Because I think that was the letter that you wrote, and your main concern, if I recall the letter, was the neurodivergence. It was the
Definitely,
autism.
yeah, yeah.
And you were
And
going, this, sorry,
no, it's
continue.
okay. Yeah, that was my main, because I'm like, well, and then he didn't say like, oh, that's not anything, just ignore that. He basically said it's like a hardware and a software issue, and so there's some stuff you can't change because the way your brain is wired. But if we just try and change everything that's not to do with that, and just go at it like that, and then see what's left over afterwards, and then we'll go with that, and then that's just what you're left with. But we'll just assume that everything's a software thing until we hit the hardware barrier, if you know what I mean. And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
and he even said, like, with the when he sent me a new book, because it obviously had changed a bit as well, the whole program,
Yep.
since I'd last done it, and it had like got better. So
Yep.
and he said specifically, he sent, which is people might find strange, is that he sent me the non-emetophobia specific one. He said, I'm just going to send
Yep.
you the normal one, because that will still, even the normal one, even if you do the one that's not for emetophobia, it still like gets you out of emetophobia, which is quite crazy.
Yep.
And all the new videos on this as well was really good. And then he also had just literally, I think, finished the Blip recovery plan, which was like his new edition, and that was the thing that probably had the biggest impact on me, because the stuff that
Right.
was in that was so helpful to me,
Yes.
which I still
Brilliant.
use literally to this day, even like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Yes. Well, why not? So that's the point you made there of the hardware and the software is really, really
Mm,
interesting. When you decided the time was right to come on the podcast and to share your journey with us, at what point had you got to in terms of emetophobia and in terms of your ASD and what your life looks like now?
hmm
How had you reconciled that in your brain, I suppose? If somebody's watching this with ASD and they're thinking, well, what is, because if you put yourself right back to
hmm
when you had emetophobia and an ASD diagnosis, and you're thinking, well, I don't know what's my ASD and what's emetophobia. I don't know what, I can change here, what I can shift.
hmm
What's your experience of that?
Um, well, this is can be quite complicated to always know, but I think, like, when I think I just kept going with stuff, and then just I kind of assumed that it was, you always say it's you creating the anxiety, and obviously the emetophobia is not. I'd say it's more common in, it would be more likely to be common in autistic people, because, or neurodivergent, because of the ingredients as it was that makes it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I think what it was there was a video, I think, in the Blip recovery plan that talked about, like, the moment that you kind of suddenly realize that you're over the emetophobia. Because I think, again, being a perfectionist, and just sometimes when you listen to other podcasts, there's lots of people, and they might be, which is great for them, and they're like traveling the world, or they're trying eating fish in restaurants, or whatever it might be,
Right.
and they're fully over their phobia. And I know Robert always said to me about making a podcast, and he said to contact me like when you're ready, and I just kept waiting and waiting. It'd been like over a year, I think, since I'd
Yeah.
last spoken to him, and I just thought, I'm not sure I'm ever going to get to be like those people. Like, I
Right.
suddenly sort of thought, this isn't going to happen for me.
Okay.
So I'm here. But I am willing to share, like, because it's not. I realize it's not. It's not about being like the other people. It's about
Mhm.
celebrating me, because I had that moment where I just thought, you know what? If I was sick, I would cope with it. And
Right.
the moment that I kind of properly realized that, and part of it, to really cement that, I did at one point have to, like, because I haven't been sick since I was 10, so nothing, I haven't
Yeah.
been sick since I've done Thrive, but I
Yeah.
did at one point just like take myself to the toilet, pretend-ish to be sick, or like visualize what would happen if I was sick, and
Yeah.
visualizing it, me coping with it, and really believing that I would. And once I'd done that, then anytime I've ever sort of thought, what if I'm sick or whatever, or I might have eaten something wrong, or it's
Yeah.
like I have that safety net. Whereas before, I'd think that's the worst thing. I couldn't cope. I would like rather die. But
Yeah.
now, because I think I really wouldn't like it, but I would cope. It's completely
Yes.
different, and I have to, and I so the moment that you think that is the moment that you're over it. Being over it doesn't mean like being like everyone else and eating out, because I don't eat out in restaurants. I'm still quite fussy what I eat with. I
Yeah.
like to check my fridge is shut quite a lot to make, because I worry about food going off.
Yeah.
I would not travel the world or anything. Like and when I do go on holiday, I take about 20 bags of various things and I will wipe around the kitchen. Like I still do quite a lot of safety behaviors. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people would probably consider that I do a lot more than what's needed. And
Yeah.
but I am over the phobia, even though, and I will, and I might, lots of those behaviors might not ever change, but if they're not really detrimentally impacting my life, like I'm not housebound and I've had
Yeah.
many achievements since, and I know that if I really want to do something, I can do it. I just have to put the
Yeah.
work in. But if that like something
Brilliant.
like restaurants, I'm not interested in, so I'm not going to put the work into that. So,
That's the key part. That's the key part, isn't it? So when you
mhm,
were saying that, I might not be like all those other people tasting fish in a restaurant, for example. If you don't want to have fish in a restaurant, if that's not a want or a desire of yours, you don't have to do that in order to say you're over emetophobia. You
exactly.
never have to do that if you don't want to do that. There's no, checklist for if you're over emetophobia, you can do X, Y, Z, or you don't have these safety behaviors, or you don't avoid these things.
Mm,
There's no checklist. There's nobody
no.
there going, oh, well, you can't be over it because you've never eaten a takeaway yet, or you've not got on a plane, or
Mm,
there's nobody doing that. It's very much you and what you decide you want to put your energy and effort into achieving. And if you don't feel that thing is going to enhance your life, that's fine. That's your prerogative. It's your life, isn't it?
mhm,
So thriving is becoming, the best version of yourself.
mhm,
Overcoming your phobia and thriving is, do you know what? I want to create this life for myself that I enjoy and that I can get through and I can tackle difficult things. And if traveling the world isn't part of that plan for you, that doesn't mean that you're not over your emetophobia. That just means
no.
I haven't put energy and effort into that area because I'm not really that bothered.
Yeah, I think like people should know that emetophobia free just means that you get to a point one day, and it's not like a sudden thing. You just sort of realize it's happened, and you're like, oh, that happened. I don't hadn't even kind of noticed.
Yes.
Where you feel like it's not the worst, you not wouldn't rather die, and that it doesn't.
Right.
It might still be like for me, it might be still a really, 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 really strong dislike, which is what it says in
Yeah.
the blip recovery plan
Yes.
and
Yes.
much more than like the average person, and you might want to take extra steps than other people to avoid it or like to
Yeah.
have some safety behaviors. But if you think, okay, well, if it did happen, I would manage it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, I'd cope and then move on with my life and not then
Right.
recreate emetophobia afterwards,
Yes.
then that's being over it. Like you don't have to,
Yes.
you don't need to judge it by the safety behaviors, you need to judge it
No,
by how you feel about the idea of being sick,
that's
basically.
it. That's it. If we liken it to a phobia of flying, for example,
Mm,
if you had a phobia of flying, there is no way anyone is getting you on a plane.
hmm
You're just not doing it. Whereas if you have a really strong dislike of flying,
hmm
you might get on a plane and hate every single minute of it, but you'd still get on the plane.
And you
Right.
might not choose to go away, like you might not go very often. Like you might just go, I'm not going to go
That's
abroad
it.
because I really don't like flying. But if your best
Right.
friend had a wedding in France and the only way to get there was a plane, you would be able to do it, tolerate it, and get off. But you
Right.
wouldn't maybe go again. But
Right.
you could manage it if it was
Yes.
necessary.
Yes.
But then you still
Yes.
don't have a yes, you don't go and you're kind of avoiding it more than other people. But then that's your choice. But you still could cope
Yes.
with it should you really need to. It's still not a phobia
That's
anymore.
it. That's it. Perfect. Perfect. Yes. Brilliant main point, I think this is, and very articulated. So thank you very much for that. So to sort of wrap up, if you will, there was a few takeaways that when we talked about what we wanted to discuss on this podcast, you kind of mentioned, and a few, if I recall, was having somebody alongside you,
Mm,
not necessarily a coach, because you didn't have a coach. The
no.
fundamental, wow factor in this podcast is how complex your case is, how far you've come, and the fact you've done it yourself. That's
hmm
massive. It's absolutely phenomenal. I said at the beginning you're remarkable, and I'll say it again. Absolutely remarkable. So do you want to talk us through why a coach is not necessary and your experience with having a family member who
hmm
was along for the ride, should we say?
Yeah, I think because like for a lot of people, a coach either they might not want it, or if they, especially if you've had like a bad experience with having
Mm,
people like helping you, but also obviously it costs money, and not everyone is open for that. So I just
that's
want
it.
to like because some other people on the podcast, like a lot of them have had coaches, but I want to show
Yep.
that even if you're really complex, you can do it without a coach. And the book
Yeah.
is so good, and the
Mm,
resources that go with it. It's not so much about the coach; it's about some people need a coach because they struggle with like the self-motivation. But as I said before, like I'm quite a self-motivated person anyway with like exams, so I can force myself to like really work and work and work at something to get something. But not everyone can manage that. But if you are like that, then you don't need a coach. Um, but with my sister, basically, and a couple of years after my sister started to struggle, not with emetophobia, but with other stuff. So I said, you need to do Thrive. So
Yeah.
she is the same driven as me with stuff. So she really just like studied it, and so we both just knew the whole thing inside out.
Nice.
And so she also had this chronic migraine syndrome, and the Thrive managed to eliminate her headaches from that. So
Amazing.
she like used it to stop this. She had this chronic pain that no doctors could cure, which so similar
Yeah.
to me in complexity, but like in a physical sense. And that was overcome by using her Thrive techniques, which is quite incredible to be honest.
Very incredible.
Um,
Yeah.
so we both knew it inside, but sometimes the thing is when you're kind of, even if however thrivey you are, however much you know the program and what you should be thinking, when you're in a blip and your feelings are telling you that this is dangerous and it's scary, and you kind of get blinded because of the lenses that you're wearing, you just can't, you kind of think there's like a small voice going, this isn't right, but you're
Yeah.
just sort of consumed by the feelings.
Yes.
That when you've got a family member that can see exactly what you're doing, and they remind you, say, look, you're wearing these lenses, this is the perspective, you've lost your perspective, this is what you need to
Yeah.
do, and here are the steps to make yourself better again. Then we just work like that with each other. So we are each other's coach, and it's
Brilliant.
easier because A, it's free, and B, it's like almost 24/7. We can just message each other any time of
Yeah.
day. And so having that, whether that's a friend that can go through it or a parent, like especially, I think everyone's got something in their life that they struggle with that might be a bit of, even if it's mild depression or anxiety or self-esteem. A lot of people got low self-esteem, that if
Yeah.
they went through that program, not just to support their friend or their family member, but to help themselves as well. And if they commit quite a lot of energy into it to really learn it themselves, then you can kind of work in a partnership, and you can be each other's coach, which I think without my sister it would have been harder. Every time since doing it I've gone into a blip, she helps me get out of it again, which is good to have.
Really good. Yeah, absolutely. Really good tip, I suppose, that and a good takeaway. You also mentioned that you see Thrive like an antibiotic or Emetophobia Free like an antibiotic. Do you want to explain why that's your perception of it?
Yeah, I think because again, being emetophobia free or being, much improved, like it's not something where you're just cured and everything's fine. It's like, for me especially, even, multiple times a week, so, and it depends on, or a couple of times a month, you get more severe ones that I'll have a blip and I will have like get in a big state about something, or my OCD will get come back a bit and get quite bad in one area, or something will happen that I really freak out about. But
Yeah.
then before I didn't have anything to help me. Whereas like, so if anyone like catches a cold or gets something, an illness, then these things happen, and then you just reach for the medicine and then you take it. I suppose some people do that for mental health as well, which isn't always the best idea. But
They
with the
do.
Thrive, it's like a non-medical thing. So I know it's like a toolkit or an
Yeah.
antibiotic, and then
Yeah.
I just know, like the other day I my dog did a poo that I didn't notice in the garden on the grass, and I trod in it, and then I came in the house, and then I just suddenly thought my whole house was contaminated, and I wanted to wash the carpet, and I just had a complete meltdown about it. And I was
Yeah.
like, even though everything was clouded and I just completely had lost it completely, then it was the day I was going to my parents' house, and I said, right, even though I wanted to just forget about it and distract myself, I knew that what I needed to do was, there's a video which I've turned into an audio about lenses. So because I was like, look, my lenses are wrong, my lenses are wrong. So I drove over to their house. I had this audio of the lenses video. Rob was like explaining about it, and then I started to calm down and felt more in control. I was like, everything that I was thinking at home, it helped as well to remove myself from the
Yep.
situation, which is essentially dream. And then I realized once I'd got there and I'd calmed down and started to change my thoughts, that I'd essentially been doing the dream technique without actually realizing as well. Like I'd
Yes.
followed all the steps
Yeah.
without even sort of consciously realizing that I'd literally done that exact thing. And then by the time
Yep.
I'd gone home, when I'd left, to me, I was so threatened, I was scared. My whole house was contaminated. It was the end of the world because that's like my safe space. By the time
Yeah.
I got home after I'd been to my parents' house, then it didn't look dirty anymore. And like, So my lenses had changed. So something that I thought was a fact wasn't. It was just the lens up. But because I'd taken the effort to listen to the video,
Yes.
then that was like I was like I knew, because in my toolkit essentially I've got all these different things and the videos whatever to help me in the recovery
Yeah.
plan. I know which one I need to reach for when, depending on the situation that I'm in. So yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. And a real good reminder that thriving is a doing thing.
Mm.
And it's not this state of euphoria that you reach where life is perfect and everything goes well all of the time and you feel brilliant and you feel happy all the time. That's not thriving.
No.
Thriving is knowing you've got the skills
Mhm.
to make the best of your life and to tackle any challenges that come your way. And that's
And to
exactly what you
understand your
described as well.
brain as well, I think,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we just believe what we think and see and feel. And once you know that your brain lies to you all the time, and
All
that
the
what you
time.
see isn't real, and what you
Yes.
feel isn't real. So if something feels really, really, really terrifying, you have to
Yeah.
tell yourself in that moment, this is the feeling, isn't the fact. Like, as one of the
Yes.
videos said, it's not a fact. Like,
Yeah.
but you just sort of have to uncondition yourself to instinctively, but which is hard, but it gets easier once you practice it, just to sort of separate those two things. Like,
Yes.
just because I'm feeling something doesn't mean that's the reality of the situation.
Yes.
So
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Is there anything else while you're here and you have the airspace that you want to get across? Any other points that you are eager to make to people listening today?
Well, I could just tell you about some of the, because I said lots of things I haven't done, and I'm not like a lot of people, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I have made quite a lot of achievements. So
Yes.
things that I have done, like I normally, before I would have this sort of a before and after thing, like before I would always need to be right near the car, which I still prefer to be, as we were sort of saying about the plane thing, but I really
Yeah.
wanted to see a theatre thing in London. So I managed to go on a train, which was, so then I was like 2 hours away from my car. So it's a
Nice.
2 hour
Yes.
train ride. And actually I've done, and because I did that once, see, then I was able to do it again when we wanted to go
Brilliant.
again, and I've actually got another one booked. So that's something I like. I wouldn't do it often, but if I really
Yeah.
want to see something again, I can like make myself do it.
Brilliant.
And
What did you see? I'm intrigued.
me and my sister went to see Frozen, and
Oh,
then
nice.
me and my mum went to see the pantomime at the Palladium as well.
Lovely. Very nice.
Um, and then another thing, it's a really massive thing, because I think if you remember with the COVID relapse, but also at COVID, one of the things that came back last, because it was so dangerous, was choirs and like singing in groups, because there's like
Yeah.
people breathing and stuff. So
Yeah.
again, I was in a choir when I was quite young, and I like
Yeah.
singing. So I decided I would join a choir, which I have, and I've kept
Amazing.
going. I mean, and again, it's not like, oh, and then I do it and then I'm normal. No, like there's going to be aspects, especially with the autism and stuff as well. And it's part of thriving is understanding what I can't change, and then accepting myself and self-advocating and not having the social anxiety and being able to say to someone, this is what I need. So I sit at the back. I don't have people too near me. I sit next to the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
And another part of this story is that a couple of years ago, I got a dog who's a border terrier, so he's so small, and he's now my assistant's dog. So I went through a whole journey of training him myself with the help of the trainer, which is
Nice.
again needed lots of skills in terms of like social anxiety and perfectionism, because training your dog is not the same as training for an exam. Like they don't always do
No,
what you want them to do.
they don't.
But he's revolutionized my life, because he comes to choir with me and he comes to
Nice.
lots of other different things with me as well. And there was a time when we had a family dog the years before, and I couldn't touch him, I couldn't do anything. And now I have two of my own.
Yeah.
So that, as lots of people know, that involves a lot of I think I have to pick up about 5 poos a day between them,
Yes.
and they sometimes get
Yeah.
ill,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of sort of germ related stuff that before would have been, because I've always loved dogs, but obviously the germs sort of, it's not, it
Yeah.
doesn't match made in heaven. But now I
Yes.
just find myself, I just touch things all the time, and I wash my hands an awful lot, of course, and
Yeah.
even the dogs have some like special dog antibacterial spray that goes on their paws. It's not like I'm not just, then everyone says they're the cleanest dogs I've ever met,
Yeah.
but I still cope with them.
Yes.
And now I can go to the Benji, the dog, comes with me to the doctors and dentists. And
Lovely.
before, doctors, hospitals, absolute, and dentists I didn't go to for years, was a complete no-go. But now, because it's like, again, a necessary thing, I
Yeah.
go there. I used to have to change all my clothes. I didn't change my clothes last time I went to the doctors.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Because there's just, with the privates, even though it's been 8 years, it's, you don't kind of get to an endpoint, right, that's it kind of thing.
No?
You might carry on doing safety behavior, and then I might, like the other day, if I've been to the doctors and I'm about to change, I might go, do I need to? Like, is this making me anxious? And then I might just go, I don't think this is a threat. So, and that's just
Brilliant.
something that just sort of, it's not about making yourself, it's just something comes in your head like, not actually sure I need to do this. So
Brilliant.
it's,
Amazing.
yeah. But I think my main, oh yeah, another thing is, if I before, like, for me, I'm still do, like, always scan the ground in case there's any, like, sick about, especially in certain places like schools or pubs and stuff. And
Yeah.
if I ever used to see that, I used to completely be so frightened, and like it would be on my mind the whole rest of the
Mm.
walk and the rest of the day beyond, and I'd be thinking about my shoes and all sorts of things. But now
Okay.
I see it, I'm still like, oh, and then I just sort of, it doesn't. I just get over it, and then I don't let it affect me the rest of the day. So that's another thing.
Brilliant. It's
And
brilliant.
then
It's absolutely
I
spot
think
on.
my main takeaway as well, I think, that changed me, when I first read it, was the moment it said you're creating it. Because I
Mm.
am, what would be, like I think Rob said as well, my desire for control is like, if on the scale of like 97%. And it still
Yeah.
is, because I am a really controlling person. And it can have positives, being really controlling, because it
Yeah.
can help you achieve goals and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, and it is common, if you are autistic or something, to really desire control a lot. So I think that's not
Yeah.
something that is easy for me to change. Like, my secondary control's got a lot better, but my desire for control is probably always going to be really strong. But in a way, that helps with Thrive, because the moment
Yeah.
someone said, because everyone else had always told me, this is happening to you, this is what you need to get it rid of it, and or reduce
Mm.
it kind of attacking you. Once someone
Yeah.
said, this is you doing it, then I was like, oh, so
Mm.
I can change it. So I'm in control again. Because before, I
Yes.
didn't feel in control. So I was like, well, if
Yes.
I'm in control, then I can stop it happening to me. And then I felt better. So I think that was like such a big moment for me, when someone that no one, and continually annoys me all the time, on TV, radio, anywhere, professionals talking about mental health as if it happens to you. Nobody says you are making it happen to yourself in the
No.
nicest possible way, just because of the way you've trained your brain. And I just think,
Mm.
I don't know why that isn't out there more, because for me that was being, because if you've got emetophobia or any other thing, you probably have got a really high desire for control. That's
Yep.
probably why you've got it. So that's so beneficial for people like that to hear. That's why.
Yes. Yes. It's so empowering, isn't it? And liberating to
Yeah.
just think, oh, I can do something about this. If you have low self-esteem, a lot of people, this is kind of an aside, but a lot of people take that as an affront, and they think,
Mm,
I'm not doing it. I did. I
mm,
certainly did. I had high social anxiety and very low self-esteem. And when my doctor at the time, because before I found Thrive, said, the IBS you're
mm.
experiencing,
Yeah, I
morning
had that as
nausea,
well. Mm,
you're doing that. I got
mm-hmm,
so mad. I was so cross. I was really angry.
mm-hmm,
I was like, no, it's not me. And I think that is the barrier that, once it's really broken down for you in the manual and you can really understand and it's explained fully to you, you'll go, I get it. But if somebody just
mm,
hits you, when you're struggling with something and then somebody hits you with it's your fault, if you
mm-hmm.
have a certain set of thinking styles and belief systems, you're going to get defensive about that. You're going to fight
Mm,
back. You're going to argue with that, aren't you? Even though it's completely accurate and completely true.
mm-hmm,
And it would alleviate so many people's suffering if they knew that it was them doing it and they could do something about it. But particularly when you have emetophobia,
mm-hmm,
it's not happening to you. It's something that you're doing. It does put you back in the driver's seat. It does put you back in control. And that does appeal to the vast majority of emetophobia sufferers, doesn't it? So
And
that's
the other thing
fabulous.
was just that it was the fact that it, I think I said it right at the beginning, it's not about being sick. Like,
No.
even like eating
Yeah.
disorders, it's not about food, it's not about
Mm.
weight. Like,
Mm.
any of these things, phobias, it's not about airplanes, it's not about anything. So, because obviously everyone before had been just saying, oh, we need to think about the past and the sick and the exposure,
Yep.
everything
Yep.
sick, sick, sick. But as I say, you can do the normal Thrive manual that doesn't even mention the word sick,
Mm.
and
Mm.
still you can overcome your emetophobia without needing the specific one, because
Yeah.
it's not about the being sick, which is so crazy. Because to me, that was crazy when I was like, how can it not be about being sick? Like,
Yeah.
this is what that was the first thing I think I thought. Because I was like, look, I've had, what, 19 years where my whole
Yeah.
life generally has been about being sick, like whether it's washing,
Yeah.
trying to prevent it from happening, thinking about it, worrying, like my whole life. So how can this not be about being sick?
Yes.
But once I started reading it, and it just said about all these different things, so I said that's why it was like non-threatening, because it was teaching me and dealing with all these other things that was nothing to do with being sick. I was like,
Absolutely.
that makes sense now. And
Yes.
it seems so strange, but it's just quite crazy. And it works as well for eating disorders, like that sort of style of thinking as well. It's not about weight. It's just
No.
about control ultimately,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
how powerful you feel really, and how you feel you can cope with unpleasant things really in life
Yeah.
at all, to be honest. Like,
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sophie. It's been fabulous having you on. Really, really helpful, really insightful. And well done you. Because from your
thank you.
starting point and from all of the, it wouldn't be, um, what's the word? It wouldn't be a long shot for someone who'd spent so many years of their life being told that they were complex and their prognosis was poor and then there was no support for them and they were just getting label after label after label. It wouldn't be a shock for someone to just go, nah, I can't do it, this is me, and I can't do anything about this, I'm going to be stuck with this for life, and give up. And you didn't. So massive kudos to you, and a well done to you, and a massive thank you from me for you taking the time today, coming on the podcast and sharing your story, because it will help so many people who are
Hmm.
struggling with this, regardless of what diagnosis they have or how complex they've been told, or if they've been told they can't get over it, as some people
Hmm.
are. It's massively important to share our voices, if you've overcome something like this, and especially yourself with all the other things going on for you. So huge thank you.
That's okay, thank you. It's just about like focusing on what you've achieved. I think that's what I suddenly just thought, well, I have, actually when I write it all down, think about it, I have done a lot, like where I am now
Yeah.
compared to, because I always just, you tend to compare yourself to others, like, oh, I don't do this, I don't
Mhm.
do that, I'm not as good, I'm
Mhm.
not over it. And then I'm like, well, actually, just good enough. Good enough, they always say, good enough is
Yes,
good enough. And it's good, what I've done is like good enough. It doesn't
definitely
have
good
to
enough.
be, amazing, but what I've done and what I have, as I said, is my achievements like now. I
Yes,
never thought that would ever happen. So that's
amazing.
good enough.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, am I right in saying you'll be back with us, but on the regular Thrive podcast soon?
I'm hoping to, yes, we're hoping to do one tackling Thrive and neurodiversity specifically, I think.
Brilliant,
Hopefully.
which would be amazing. So if you've enjoyed Sophie's story, tune in to Thrive, hopefully in the near future, and you can hear her again talking more in detail about the neurodiversity side of things instead of the emetophobia. But thank you again, Sophie, and I will speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.